I'm Hayden McEvoy, founder of A-Team Tuition and the A-Game podcast. I grew up with ADHD, went from failing the first 9 years of school to becoming a straight-A student. Since then, I've partnered with over 100 schools and helped over 20,000 students become A students through the same method. This podcast is exactly how we've done it. Let's find your A-Game. Hayden, you're 25 years old, you don't have an education degree, you don't know what you're doing. It's unfair to be giving this girl false hope and false precedences that she can get an A. There is no way she will ever achieve above a C grade. Was the exact words that this particular teacher said to me when I was working with this student. We must believe in our students before they believe in themselves. And this is the issue with the system, is we're so trained through the ranking system of life, through the A to E system, that only a small portion of students can get A's. And then, so the concept of another student doing it is unbelievable. This story today is Limitless Files number 1. It's the story of Maisy. I've changed the name of this particular student for privacy reasons, and we hope to have this particular student on the podcast in the future to discuss it from their angle. But today we're going to talk about Maisy's story, the year 9 girl transformation that changed everything. Maisy went from E's to A's in just 3 months after the teacher told me point blank she would never get above a C. This episode, we're going to dive into her story, how this happened, what happened, and essentially give you some inspiration of some of the crazy transformations that are there. Her story is a testament to belief. Her story is a testament to when a student has the right mindset, the right strategies, and right support, anything is possible. This story is emotional, and there's quite a lot of gravity to it, so I look forward to getting into it. Let's jump right into it. So going back to 2017, we kicked off the Limitless project. So the purpose of the project was to prove to Australia that any student can succeed with the right mindset, strategy, and support. The school had just said, yep, we're keen. We're going to give away a $5,000 scholarship. We're going to find a student who's failing, who the system's written off. We're going to transform them into A's, and we're going to show this in front of the entire school to re-spark the culture and what's there. And I was fortunate enough that there was a particular principal at this school who today is really high up in education in Queensland, who I remark as one of the greatest educational leaders that I've ever met. I watched this particular school over 5 years go from average to the high-performing school and saw parents flock from private schools to this school under this person's leadership. So I had a fantastic support network at the school. And what was really cool is we kicked off the project and we had 104 students apply for it, and the school turned around and said, we're going to fund one too. So we got to give 2 away. This particular episode, we're going to go into one of those stories, and we're going to come back to the other one later. So it all started with the opportunity and the idea of transforming a student from E's to A's. The school turned around and said, we love this, let's give it a go, let's back it. What was unfortunate that I spoke to a number of other schools, including my own school, who said that they didn't believe it was possible and didn't want to go down that pathway. And so this particular school, I was very fortunate to kick that off. It started with, they said, come to one of the parent assemblies and we want you to announce this scholarship. And what happened was I had called Channel 9 at that point and said, we're going to turn an E student to an A student, and we want you guys to capture this to send hope to the Australian public, and my brother Cam McEvoy is going to be there. So they said, yep, 100%, let's do it, we'll be there. And I remember getting up to the assembly and thinking, oh man, what if this doesn't work? I'm going to look like a fool here, and then deciding, no, we're all in, let's make this happen. And Channel 9's up the back, there's 1,000 parents there. I get up, I was 24 years old, and I boldly said, we've transformed many students into A students, and we're about to show you that. We're going to find an E student or a D student here. We're going to transform into an A student, and we're on the hunt for somebody who wants to become an A student. The marketing of that project went nuts. We had 104 students apply for this scholarship, and we're overwhelmed by the outcome. We didn't think we would get more than 20, 25. And so we began down the course, and I knew that if we could find a student who had the right mindset already, we could give them the strategy, we could shape the support, and they would be off and running. And so from the 104, there was one particular girl, Maisy, who she applied, and her application was purely from her. She was year 9. She said, I'm on E's. I know I can do it. I just need someone to show me how to. And this girl, every single day for the 3 weeks that we were doing interviews, would go by herself to the admin, and she would say, have they announced the winner? where's it at? And the receptionist made sure that they told me that every time Maisy's come back in again, she's asked again. And so we knew that this was someone pretty special. So we sat down with her, and the plan was we'll interview her, we'll interview the parents, and we'll interview the teacher. We need to see what the support network around this child's like, and are they working together or are they working against each other? So Maisy goes, I know I can do it. I just need you to show me how. And she loved my story. I'd told my story of going from D's to A's, and I said, I'm going to help you to do it. And she was like all in. She's like, yes, let's do it. Next up, I had the parents come in. I remember sitting in the boardroom at this school, and the parents were so nervous, and they came in and they were very gentle and kind. And we got talking, and they had said, yeah, Maisy, she is normally a C student, but she slipped to E's, and they were hiding something. And I was like, well, what do you think it is? And they went around in circles. Then finally the dad came out and said, look, the story is my wife has just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she's got about a year left to live. And we're struggling to find the money to support the medical bills. And Maisy has been working full-time outside of school to try to help us with funding this. And we don't want to tell the school. We don't want to tell anybody. It's just our own personal scenario, and we're trying to deal with this themselves. And that was a heavy, heavy moment. And it just clicked. And I was like, this girl is hardcore. The fact that she's willing to do that, that she still comes to school, that she's this keen to get going. And when I spoke to Maisy, she said she wanted to prove to her parents she could get A's. And so we get started, and then next up, I had the fortunate opportunity to interview the teacher. So the teacher comes in, and I think she saw me at 24 and was like, what does this guy know? Why is he doing my job? And I can understand some teachers might feel that we're like coming in and undercutting them, but in the end of the day, they teach 30 kids. We get to work with one. And so I said to this teacher, first up, do you believe any student can achieve A grades? And she thought, and she said, no. Do you believe Maisy can achieve A grades? And she turned around and she thought, and she goes, no, it'll never happen. She'll be lucky to get a C. It's not going to happen. And it was a bit awkward because I just announced the entire purpose of this and said, this is what we're doing. And I remember just going, well, let's see what happens. I think we can do it. And she said, good luck. I hope she does. I went away and I sat with my team and I said, we have to be very careful here because we have a teacher that's battling against us that isn't going to want to get proved wrong in this scenario. The school was aware of it, and the principal fortunately was like, yep, I'm not having that. That's the culture I'm trying to get out of here. And this particular time we said, okay, we have to be smart here. And we chose to target math. We said, we're going to target math because in the end of the day, math's black and white, you get the result, you can't lie, it's factual, it's there. We thought if we did English, there was the potential of bias in this scenario. So we went all in on math to do that. So then from there, we kicked off and went into the next stage, which was, okay, we've got to find the right academic personal trainer, which is our tutors, to work with this student. And so we had a particular academic personal trainer who had come from a troubled childhood in a different sense and had rose amongst that to get an OP2 equivalent, which was an exceptional grade back then, and was getting distinctions and high distinctions in university and was an exceptionally charismatic tutor. This particular tutor knew what it was like to struggle and they knew what it was like to succeed. And that's what I felt we needed in this situation. So that tutor was keen as and said, yep, we're on board, let's do it. And so we sat down and kicked off with the orientation. So we had the family come into our head office and we sat down and I told my story. And the entire purpose of that orientation was I wanted them to walk away truly believing they could do this. And I knew that had to be an experience that was so powerful, it changed the way they thought about the world. So I told my story and then I told them the exact blueprint of how we're going to do it, the exact study strategy, the exact game plan. So they walked away with that. The parents walked away with that as well. And then we got to work. And so I remember back then, this was the early days of A-Team, and I had a boardroom. Our office was the size of just one boardroom, and it had glass walls all the way around it. And this particular student would walk from their house to our office at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, Thursday morning for an hour and a half. And I would come into work, and there would just be math equations everywhere, all over the wall. And I am a math head myself, and so at the start I was like, it was interesting to see because most of them were wrong, which you'd expect. But then week by week, they started getting better and better and the questions got harder and harder. And then I noticed that this particular student was now working at a year 10 level. And And the tutor was like, she is improved out of sight. She's done every single thing and more with us. She comes with her study notes every week. She comes with her questions. And she's at a point now where she's obsessed with this and wants to do well. And so we saw that transformation happen. Initially, it happened in just being able to remember the facts and the formulas. And then all of a sudden it became fluent to then do the math. And then not long after, you could have full conversations of how this particular math can be used in another part of this student's life. And they'd fully immersed themselves in this journey. And so we were heading into the first term test. And so the plan was to go from E's to C's. We're like, let's just get to a C. And what we've found over time is that to get a C, a student just needs to go to class and do their homework consistently. That's enough to get that going generally. To get a B, generally students will do revision and then cramming before an exam, and then generally A students are quite systematic. It's funny actually, A students do half the work of B students. And I know this experiencing it myself and through the science. Basically, A students are exceptional at understanding and finding the gaps in their knowledge, and they invest all their time into that space, whereas B students relearn everything time and time and time again and become overwhelmed. And so A students are very meticulous, and a lot of the time it comes from learnt behaviours from parents or other mentors, and that's one of the things we teach with the study pyramid is this is how you actually do that to an A standard. And so we saw Maisy's study strategy getting better and better and better, and then by the end she was coming to us with, these are my gaps, challenge me, what can we do? So I was going to be happy with a C in that first term. And then the plan was I was going to go then meet with the teacher and go, we've gotten to a C. I think let's go to a B. What do we need to do? It was quite a collaboration. And I remember I was sitting at my desk and it was a random Thursday, and I got a text out of the blue, and it was from the mum. And I was like, oh, what's this? And it was just a screenshot, and it had the teacher's name, Maisy's name, Year 9 Maths, A plus A. And I was just like, whoa, like 3 months you did this. And I cried. I got teary in that moment. And it was powerful because what we were obsessed with, I sat down with a tutor and our team internally, we said, we have to get this girl to A's, not just for the project, because we want peace of mind for her mum. So no matter what happens, she can know that she can rest, that her daughter's getting A's and she's in a good place now and she doesn't have to think about that. And so it was emotional because of that. And so I picked up the phone and called the mum, and she was ecstatic and she was crying and she was so happy. And it was the most powerful moment, one of the most powerful moments I've had in the 15 years of doing this. And so from there, term by term, we sharpened, we got better and better. And then by the end of the year, she was getting straight A's, and she had been getting A's in other subjects as well. That was where the Limitless project really came to life. And at the end of that year, we got to get up at the assembly in front of 2,000 families and students and parents and tell her story and go, she went from E's to A's in 3 months. This is how she did it. She had the right mindset. We built her confidence. We built her engagement and motivation. We gave her the game plan, the A game plan. And then we just had the right support network there. So we were there when she wanted to give up. We were there when things weren't clicking. We were there when she was frustrated. We were there when it was tough. And we were that, I like to think we helped her over each hurdle, which allowed her to continue compounding and compounding. But in the end of the day, this particular student thrived because at the heart, she was a high performer. And she had what it took. She was motivated, and she felt believed in. And we have something called the Pygmalion effect, which is essentially the belief that we have of our students as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, we believe in the child starts going, oh, maybe I can do this. So they try that bit harder. Then a light bulb moment happens and they go, oh, I can do this. And then they take more action, and then they get a result like that. And then it changes their identity and new beliefs formed. Oh, I can get A's. So then they go harder. And they go harder again, and it compounds and compounds. This flywheel that gets faster. A lot of the time, we're unpacking the opposite, where a teacher has been reminded of a student in the past that gave them trouble, so they avoid them just out of unconscious bias. And then the student goes, oh, well, I'm not getting much attention. I mustn't be doing that well. So they disengage. They don't try as much. They think school's not for me. Why bother? And then they get a bad grade, and the teacher goes, see, I knew it. That's who they are. And then that shapes that negative loop. So a lot of the time we're unpacking that negative loop and then trying to spin it the other way. And it's a very slow flywheel at the start, and then it just rockets when it's off. And so we got to the end of the year, and Maisy achieved A's, and we followed her through the rest of her schooling. The end of that year, unfortunately, we went to the funeral, and her mum did pass away. And that was a really powerful moment to be able to stand there with that family and know that that mother passed away knowing her daughter is an A student now. And it's not just the grade. The grade is one thing, but it's the identity shift that a student has when they achieve that grade. I know exactly what that feels like. All of a sudden you're like, go from poor me, I wasn't born lucky, to like, I can do anything. And it starts that compounding nature. So, years later, we've followed Maisy really closely, and she's now really successful. She owns her own home, and she works in the medical field quite high up, and she's doing exceptionally well. And when we catch up, that's what she reflects on, is that her belief changed in that program, in that project, and it set her up for the rest of her life. So from there, why that was one of the most transformational moments was the main lesson I learned was that truly any student in any situation can achieve A grades when they have the right mindset, strategy, and support. It went quickly because this girl already had the mindset. She truly believed from the start she could do it, and I sensed that in the interview. And I think that's the unlock. When we talk about the transformational process, we begin by shaping the mindset. It's the beginning, it's the engine. We've got to build the confidence first, and then the engagement comes. Once those two things happen, the student sits there and goes, do I have the ability to learn this? Yes. Do I need to learn this? Yes, I want to learn this. And then the fuel begins, and then we just basically gave her the strategy at the right time. So we say right strategy, right student, right time. And so the timing of it was perfect, and then it just clicked, and she got along exceptionally well with her academic personal trainer. And so that relationship, we learned how important that is as well for the success to come. But what she taught me, she gave me such a gift that I could never repay, which is through extreme adversity and one of the hardest moments of her life, she managed to achieve something remarkable that her own teacher wrote her off. And that forever shapes my perspective that any student can do it. And I truly believe that because of her. So that's it for today. Limitless File number 1 with Maisy. We've got many, many more of these to come. Hopefully you got some inspiration from that. And the main takeaway is remember to believe. We need to believe in our students before they believe in themselves. And that's where it all begins. Thank you so much for listening today. And I look forward to catching up in the next episode.